If you could describe radical acceptance in one word, phrase, or mantra, what would it be?
My first thought is, when do I feel the opposite of that? Like, when do I feel resistance to radical acceptance? And I think I feel resistance to radical acceptance when I'm not trusting. If I'm not able to trusting the process, trusting that something is going to be right for me or wrong for me or whatever, if I can't trust my intuition or trust my guides or my ancestors, then that's where I start to kind of act inauthentically to myself.
Hi, love, and welcome to Queerify, formerly known as Quest, a journey to wellness, where we help to demystify what wellness means for cutie BIPOC. And I'm V, aka Love Ness Monster. I'm a two-spirit human from the Yaqui and Hopi nations, Mexipino, Mexican Filipino, and a joy influencer with all pronouns accepted. Today, we're going to chat with Naomi Westwater. They, them pronouns. They are this incredible genre-defying musical artist, witchy lyricist, poet, and event producer. And they just released an album, y'all, called Cycle and Change. And it's streaming on all platforms. And they described it as an ode to living seasonally. And you might be wondering, what the heck does that mean? You're going to hear about it more. We're going to go through it in the episode. But a little taste, it's just being more comfortable with surrendering to change. And surrendering to those uncontrollable things that we try to control. And how to feel grounded in the unknown. They share some practices that help them feel more grounded. And, you know, it's a really incredible little adventure we're going to take y'all on through the life of Naomi Westwater. We're also going to share a song, one of their beautiful songs from their album here. We're going to start the episode a little bit with a taste of some of their music. And then you're going to hear from Naomi Westwater. I hope that y'all enjoy their music and enjoy the heart that they shared on this episode. So without further ado, enjoy some of this track and welcome Naomi.
Holy basil in the moonlight. Who are you to tell me I'm not right? Oh. Lavender coming up from the ground. Signs of spring are out, you know, we should all be out. But everything is cycle and change. 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 And change.
My name is Naomi Westwater. My pronouns are they, them, and if you know me real well, she. And I'm based in the greater Boston area. I am a singer, songwriter, a music curator, event producer, a spiritual person. I wear many, many hats, but I think overall I'm an artist. And a fun little queer fact about me. I love that queer people have completely co-opted astrology, and now it is a queer thing. So I'll let you know that I'm a Taurus rising, Pisces moon, and I've got a lot of planets in Sagittarius and Capricorn.
Nice. The planet of creativity and getting shit done.
Yes.
I'm not an astrologist, but I dabble.
Yes, I dabble too. I'm a dabbler.
Yeah. I'm a Gemini with a rising and moon both in Virgo.
Okay.
Yeah,
that mutable energy.
Thank you. See, I dabbled, so I'm like mutable. So is that I'm like immediately like quiet.
No, mutable is like it's the signs that happen at the end of the season. So they change, they ebb, they flow.
That's true. I'll be rocking with it, lean with it, rock with it. I'm definitely flexible and adaptable, and I think that's what's got me where I've gotten to this point. But yeah, enough about me. One thing I do want to ask you, because this is a Cutie by Pac podcast, and if you're comfortable with like talking about a little bit of perhaps your intersectionalities.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a lot of them. So I am Black multiracial. My mom is white. My dad is Black and his family's from Barbados. I am queer, genderqueer, chronically ill baddie over here. So those are kind of all of my big identities that come up a lot. But I feel like all of my identities, I'm constantly in all of my identities are like not actual boxes you can check. They're like
period.
Yeah.
Would you say that they're cycles?
Yes, totally. Yes.
And for those of you that were like, why did V just say cycles all weird? Because this is the name of Naomi's new record, correct?
Yeah, Cycle and Change. Yep.
Yeah. So what brought you to creating your record, to that, giving it that name, Cycle and Change?
I wrote that title track and I wrote it March 2020. Stuck in my house, just like all of us were stuck in our house. And I live in Boston and New England, and so our winters are pretty harsh and pretty barren. And then starting in late March, early April, all of the plants start to come back. And typically that's when life really starts happening and you get to like be with your community again and go out in the world. And I was just stuck in my house because of lockdown. And so I was like, oh, wow, like the nature is blooming and we're having spring, but we're actually stuck inside and we can't like actually experience spring. And that was like the understanding of like everything is cycle and change. Like we actually don't have a lot of control. There are so many things happening outside of our control. We have to accept that change is constant. And at the same time, like spring comes every year. It's a guarantee. And there are certain themes and cycles in our life that are always going to pop up and always going to be there. And I think for me, getting through the last few years, and this is like my kind of life mantra, is like being able to hold that both of those concepts are true, that we are constantly changing and also constantly coming back to in cycles and repeating things too.
Nice. Not a lot of people are comfortable with change or not comfortable with the no control factor of things. And it brought me to like thinking of like, what got you to the point to where like you just like surrendered? You're like, I got no control. Change is coming. Like, what got you to that point?
I think for me, like the pandemic forced that because there was just so many things. And the life that we're in since then is like, there's so much happening in the world that's not in our control. And it can be very scary. And I just keep turning to nature and I just keep like going back to nature and seeing like, how does nature deal with change? Because nature is constantly changing. And gardening has been such a huge like help for me with that. First of all, it's like getting myself super grounded, no shoes on, grass on my toes, dirt in my hands. Like that's really helpful to ground me and to be present in the moment. But also when I am actually paying attention to nature, I see that every single day the garden is different. Like this idea that we're supposed to be static is actually just, it's not real. Like we're not supposed to be static. We are supposed to be constantly changing. But at the same time, we also cycle back. So I think being able to hold those two things, that yes, my entire life is different than it was 5 years ago, but there are certain things that still happen. Like I'm still going to celebrate my birthday every November. I'm still going to enjoy planting and gardening every summer. Like those are guarantees. And so trying to allow myself to live with the both, and like it's change, and also there are certain things that will happen. But it's hard. It's really hard. Yeah. It's a mantra I have to repeat to myself all the time.
Yeah, definitely, most definitely. And I could totally vibe with you on that, because I'm just like almost doing like a movie montage in my brain of like all the like hardships and like different things that I went through, that if I had that mindset that I had control, I think it would have been a little bit harder. But there's something my grandmother taught me when I was very, very young, so that way I would chill the fuck out. She would always like, everything's always going to work out. And she passed when I was like 10 years old. So like those little things that she taught me like really, really stuck with me growing up, because I was like, oh, grandma is always right. I don't question grandma. So if she says everything is going to be fine, I need to chill. And I need to just ride the horse in the direction it's going, or ride the wave in the direction it's going. So I find your surrender, like, I love that you compare it to nature. And I did listen to your album, and I noticed that there's a lot of like nature references in it, and I was like, yo, this is awesome. Like I love to be able to compare the human experience to nature, because we are all one.
Yes.
I've always like had that mindset, but I've never really like put it together. And I think that like your album and then your way of thinking like has put that together for me so beautifully, that like I'm seeing the human experience in a new lens.
Thank you. I mean, we are nature. And I think where we get into trouble is when we try and act like we're not. And that creates suffering. And when we can do that surrendering of like, no, I'm supposed to cycle just like the moon cycles, just like the trees cycle, just like everything else does. I'm supposed to do that. I'm not a robot. I'm nature. I'm a part of nature. That's what nature does. Nature has rest times, and nature has times of huge expansive growth. And nature has slow times, and nature dies, and nature comes back to life. Like that's, and I'm supposed to do all those things, and you're supposed to do all those things too. And I think with our culture, we're taught very differently. And then we fight against our own nature. And it creates suffering. And so for me, it's just like really trying to allow myself to like be the animal that I am, like, and take cues from nature too.
Yeah. Oh, I'm like, my mind is so blown right now, because I'm also trying now to have grace for myself.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of past episodes about like self-compassion and things like that. And having this mindset of like comparing yourself to nature in like this depth of a way, like makes having grace for myself way easier. Like if you've got grace for that garden that's like going through whatever it's going through, like we are the same. And I thank you for that.
Yeah. And I think too, just like looking at the outside world and how does a tree grow, right? And like there's so many imperfections on any tree, and yet like it's still growing, it can still thrive, it's still providing shade and habitat, right? And also there are certain things that the tree doesn't have control over, how much it rains. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and so, and neither do we. And we have to just be in acceptance of that. And sometimes it maybe rains too much or doesn't rain enough, but we still have to grow even in those conditions. And so just, yeah, for me, it just is like returning to nature, reminding myself that I'm part of nature. How can I live seasonally? How can I live with the seasons instead of against them? All of those things have really helped me.
I love that. And that reminds me of like the mycelial network of like when it doesn't rain and one tree's got hella nutrients and the other one doesn't, it sends it. And that's like that idea of community of like,
Yes.
you know, often as Black and brown folks or just people of color, like we're taught to like handle your shit by yourself. Don't involve other people. But I've found so much power in involving people that thing you're trying to struggle through doesn't have as much power over you when you have that community, when you have people with different perspectives to like be like, what if you think of it like this or like that? So when you thought that, I was like, again, like putting the human experience with the nature experience.
Totally. Yes. And I think like probably for you with this podcast, for me with my record, like there are certain things that I want to experience and want to bring into existence that I could not do on my own. Like that's also, there's some joy in bringing in community. Like there are certain things that are bigger than me. Sometimes my art is bigger than me and I need to invite in lots of other people to help make it possible. And that's a beautiful thing. And yeah, I could make a solo record completely on my own, but it would be so much smaller than the thing I was able to achieve. And that's because I brought in a lot of people.
That's incredible. I love that. I love that so much. And I'm so excited for this record to just keep expanding.
Thank you.
Like, I'm so stoked. And now like makes me think of like the record's done and you've done all this work. How would you describe your current cycle?
I think I'm in a difficult place because I planned this record to come out in springtime, when for me, springtime is a time of opening, bud breaking, bursting forth, lots of energy. But I lost my dad a month ago. And so like, I personally am in a place of winter. Like I just want to be, I want curtains drawn. I want to be cozy. I want to be reflective. I want to be grieving. And so I'm kind of in this like duality place of like, everything around me, nature is like, go, 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 go. And this record is like, let's go. Like, and I'm kind of like, okay, but I'm grieving. So again, I've been really pulling my community in because I've just been super honest with people. And I've just been saying like, hey, like this really amazing thing is happening and I'm getting to talk about it and it's going to be out and people are going to finally listen to it. I've been working on this record for like 3.5, 4 years. Like I'm so excited. And also I don't care at all because I just like miss my dad. And so I'm like holding both of those things. And I've really just been reaching out to my friends and to my community and just saying like, can you all help carry this a little bit? Because I'm in winter when I want to be in spring, but I'm not. I'm just not. And so I'm trying to be, yeah, like you were saying, I'm giving myself just a lot of grace of like living in that duality. And I'm trying to really balance. If I'm having a moment of deep, deep grief, I try and follow it up with a moment of lots of joy. I've kind of said like, I'm willing to let myself go deep into grief, but I don't want to get stuck there. So I need to balance that out with joy. But I'm a deep feeler, so I need to allow myself to like go really deep. So
yeah, like I can definitely relate to that, and I'm sorry to hear about your pops.
Thank you.
I have like deep ancestral work that I do on the side, and there's those days that are really hard, and there's those days where I put some favorite music on, and these people are rocking with me and dancing with me, and put a beer on their altar and we'll have a little, shindig. I know that we spoke prior to this interview and you had mentioned the ancestral altar that you have.
Yep.
I don't know if that brings you a little bit of peace, knowing he's not really completely gone.
I've had a couple moments with altars recently that felt really good. One was I was away from my house as my dad was, as I was moving him into hospice, and then as he passed and all of these things. And when I came back to the house, I put him on the altar, and that was like emotional, but also made me be like, okay, look at all these other people he's with now, like all these other people that are surrounding him, family members, friends that have passed. So that felt good. And then my mom and my friend and my dad was an incredibly spiritual person. And so we went and we cleaned off his altar at my parents' house, and we put his ashes on his altar, and we like cleaned everything off, because I don't think he had dusted his altar for 20 years. So there was a lot of dust.
Oh,
so
no.
I know. So we cleaned off all the crystals and everything and rearranged it. And it was emotional. It was emotional. But the other thing that happened is, and I'll say this because I feel we can talk about this in this space. I feel I had like a visitation from him. I had a dream, and this was a couple weeks after he passed, and I had been really anxious. And I had a dream that I was in the hospital with him, and he like sat up in bed, and he looked me right in the eyes, and he was like, "Naomi, I love you." And like when I woke up, I just felt this kind of like, oh, okay. Like, so there have been some moments, like, again, deep feeling, but that have been felt really spiritual, that have allowed me to feel, I'm not at peace, but a little bit more accepting of what's happening, and able to process my grief from a place of missing him instead of from this place of like guilt or anger.
Yeah. Honestly, like growing up, I didn't know what ancestor altars were.
Yeah.
So I'd never. We have the ofrendas during Day of the Dead, but it's so just like a holiday thing where, okay, they can only come back during this time, but learning like an ancestral altar like can be a yearly thing, an everyday thing that you can rock with your ancestors all the time. Like learning that has really helped me with my grief, because unfortunately I've had loads of family, chosen and blood, who have passed away. And for those listeners like that are maybe listening, they're like, what the heck is an ancestor altar? You throw some pictures of your people, you feed them, you give them drinks, you have blessings. Like everybody's altars are going to look different, are going to have different things, but a lot of the elements are just kind of like, they don't have access to certain things where they're at, so you're welcoming them into your home, into your space with these things.
Yeah, for me too, my ancestor altar, it's like very important for me to have it wherever I live, because it's like, I don't know, this is just something I believe is it's like it helps them locate me. It's like it helps them locate, this is where I'm at, okay, and this is where you can communicate with me. This is where I live. This is our I'm like kind of safe trying space. To ground them a little bit in the safe space. Yeah. And so I have pictures. I have, I've got like a family friend's sunglasses. I have my great grandmother's gloves, like all these different little things. And I always put fresh flowers on the altar, and I will light candles when I want to have like intentional time with them. And I try and clean my altar like once a season, dust it off, clean it off. My grandfather was really into Florida water. That was like the perfume he would wear. So I always clean off the altar with Florida water, because like that's the scent he liked, like those type of things. And it's also a way, there are some of my ancestors that I didn't meet them. Both of my dad's side of the family, both of his parents died before I was born. One died right after I was born. So I didn't get to know them. So the only opportunity I have is a spiritual connection with them. And I think it's so meaningful, especially for people of color in the US where we're often cut off from our culture to reconnect to our ancestors, because that's how we reconnect to our culture and that's how we can connect to ourselves. And so even if you don't have the opportunity to do that in the physical realm, you can do that in the spiritual realm. And that's how, like, for me, the ancestor altar has been really important. And I like to often go and sit when I need counsel. I will often go and like meditate in front of the altar, light a candle, be with them. When I have something exciting or something I'm stuck on, I'll go there. And then the other thing I have on my altar is I have this beautiful wooden box that my godfather made me. And it's where I put people's names who have asked for healing or are sick or need some kind of heart healing. And so I put their names on the altar, and I kind of ask my ancestors and my loved ones who have passed to kind of help send healing to them as well. So that's kind of
incredible.
That's how I bridge like the living people I put there as well if they need some healing. But I love it. It's, there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just what feels good to you. And it's what helps me feel connected. But it's like, it really grounds me to have them here in my home.
Yeah, honestly, it does. Like, I moved in with my partner, I think like 2 or 3 years ago, and we had our altars together. And one of our friends who kind of like guides us through things was like, that's a lot of energy. Y'all need to separate your ancestors. So just a couple months ago, I finally separated my ancestors and did my thing with my altar. She did her thing, and like the vibe in the apartment like completely changed. Like I felt a little less robotic. I was like in that like robot stage, like kind of that stagnant, that very like static feeling. And oddly enough, putting my ancestral altar together, I felt alive again.
Yeah.
And so the fact that you say that your ancestor altar brings you grounding, like I can totally relate with that, because I was like feeling lost and I was like, what is going on? And then like you, I seek counsel to them too. And I'm just like, wait, y'all been in a box on the floor for how long? Or just some of you up here on the altar with my partner, and like, that's a lot going on.
Yeah.
So I love hearing that it works for other people too, that it's not just me, that I'm not a weird, like, I mean, I am weird, but
no. And I think too, like, this is not new. This is ancient stuff. And that's why I think that's another thing. It's like the tradition of having an altar for your ancestors is ancient. That's old. So I think there's an aspect of it's connecting to them, but it's also connecting to culture. Like, we're supposed to be keeping these people around and thinking of them and honoring their memory and telling their stories. And culturally, we're so afraid of death and so afraid of grief that we often are told, push that away. That's like American culture is like, get back to work, push that stuff away. But that's not like our folk culture. That's not where we came from. Grief is a huge part of life. It's natural for things to die, and it's natural for us to grieve them. Returning back to that nature, it's like nature is constantly dying and grieving and recycling. And so I think, to me, it's like, I don't know how my ancestors did it hundreds of years ago, but I'm doing my version. But I know that they were honoring their ancestors as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Would you say that you have any other types of practices that you find that ground you?
Yeah, I have been practicing tarot for about 12 years now. My mom reads tarot, and she's an herbalist. And so I learned from her. And it's everything from like daily pulling just a card a day to check in to like really big tarot spreads for big issues. Like, it really helps to kind of have this check-in time and this rhythm to do that work. And I find it to be very inspiring too. Like, I've written a couple songs inspired by tarot cards. So because I think tarot is just basically a way to tell story. But that's another big aspect. And then I started a coven. We're on our 7th year now. And we celebrate the wheel of the year. We get together for the summer, winter solstice, the fall and spring equinoxes, and then the cross quarter holidays, which is in between those 4 holidays.
Cool.
And having a spiritual practice that's an individual practice, like my ancestor altar, like my tarot practice, and then combining it with a community practice has been so amazing. To be able to do stuff solo and also do stuff with other people is just really, really, really powerful. And we've been meeting every 6 weeks for the last 8 years, and we're constantly checking in, like we're checking in on those cycles again. It's like, okay, this upcoming summer solstice is going to be our 7th summer solstice together, celebrating it. So it's like to be able to do that in community and to have a collective memory and to be collectively celebrating the summer solstice is like really powerful. We just met last week to celebrate Beltane, May Day, which is the midpoint of spring on May 1st. And it's Taurus season. Beltane is one of the fertility holidays. So it's usually very sensual. We're dressing up all sexy, flowers, honey, everything. But also they made space for the fact that my dad had just passed, and we made a spirit plate for him and honored him and invited him into the circle, and we're able to hold that as well. And that was just really touching to have my spiritual community do that and think of that. And my whole life is a spiritual practice. Like I read something, I was told you I have a Pisces moon, and I read something and was like, Pisces, like if it's not spiritual, if it's not deep, you all will basically just disassociate. So it's like everything has to be deep or else I won't do it. Like everything has to be meaningful. I have to try and find spirituality like in the mundane. Like even when I'm like trying to like do the dishes, I'm like, okay, I'm cleaning my house. Let's make it a ritual. I'm honoring my space, or else I'm like, I don't want to do this. What's the point of this? So I have to go deep. I actually have a problem like not going deep, if that makes sense. So
is it a problem though? I think humanity would be in a much better place if more people would go to the deep.
Yeah. Yes.
So I think that is a superpower that you have.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And I love that, like a queer coven.
Yeah.
Hearing you talk about it, I think me and my partner are also part of a coven. We meet on like the super moons, the super full moons, and we have like discussions on how we're gonna like move forward, like whatever the power of that moon, the energy of that astrology, we will have questions that we set up and we ask each other, and then we'll like have like a bowl where we burn and release things, and I was like, holy moly, like I think when I was young I would have been like, oh my god, they're witches, because historically Hollywood, all the books and Salem and all of that have just like demonized these practices. But now that I'm doing them, I'm just like, there is nothing evil about this. Like it is so magical to cry in community, to really break down like those things that you really don't share with your therapist.
There is a connectedness and an accountability that I think is important about doing spiritual work in community and with others, because I feel accountable to show up to my spirituality when I'm doing it in community. It's easy sometimes to be like, oh, let me prioritize something else. But if I know there's 9 of us, if I know like, those 8 other people are expecting me to show up, and then I'm going to show up, and then I show up with intention, and we ritualize it. We which I think for me, like just having ritual is so important. We open and close in a certain way, and we sing certain songs, and we celebrate certain holidays in certain ways. And We set an altar table and all of those things. Like the spiritual practice is the getting together and doing the ritual, but it's also like the preparing of it as well. So
that's incredible. Yeah, because like the spiritual journey on your own, it's so easy to fall off.
it is. Yeah.
But having like that group, it makes sense. Like having that accountability, it's like, okay, I need to arrive with most of myself
Yes.
and not the robotic self.
Yep.
But even if you do show up with a robotic self,
Show up as you are.
the coven shall unveil you and help you out and be there, which has definitely helped. But I love that I'm like, Mom, do we have a coven? And then I know you had mentioned your mom was an herbalist.
Yeah.
Would that be something that you also incorporate into your spiritual practice?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm definitely, first of all, I love gardening, and it is like meditation for me. Like, as I said, it grounds me. It brings me into the present moment. And then when I'm gardening, I'm always thinking about adding in herbs, whether it's for medicinal or magical purposes, into the garden. And I'm harvesting the herbs that I grow. And also there's certain things that just grow in my yard naturally that I did not plant that are medicinal and magical. I am not an herbalist myself, but I'm always using herbs and plant medicine and everything. And I think from, like I said, both a magical place and also a very practical place of, and this is so simple, but it always blows my mind. It's like, if I have a stomach ache, I can go drink chamomile tea and feel better. And it is amazing to me that like nature has provided a remedy for my tummy troubles. Like, that's crazy. And I can grow my own chamomile, and I've done that before. Like, it's not hard to do. We just have to have the knowledge, you know? And so, yes, I'm always turning to nature. My song, Cycle and Change, the title track on the record, I list all these different plants that I use. And like, I have endometriosis, and I have a lot of pain with my periods and with ovulation. And I've done a lot of work with raspberry, because raspberry leaf is really good for the cycle. So it's like, I grow raspberries in my yard, and the berries are wonderful and fun and beautiful. And it's so fun to go out in the mornings when the berries are ready and pick the berries and eat them. But also there's like a deeper medicinal thing that plant is showing me. And I also like to pay attention to what plants show up in my life, because I feel like those plants might have medicine to offer me that I need to take. And so with raspberry, a friend of mine who is a landscaper, he gave me a raspberry plant he had that he couldn't use. It was dying. He's like, this is dying. You can have it if you want. Maybe it'll grow. And it ended up taking over my yard. And so I was
Wow.
I was like, there's something about this plant that I need to use. This plant is offering me medicine, because it went from a dying plant to taking over. And so I take cues from nature like that as well, as like, who's showing up in my yard and what medicine do they have to offer me? So I have a ton of wild rose in my yard, and rose is cooling and calming, and it's good for the heart. And so I use that plant in both spiritual and medicinal work, and that plant has shown up, and I'm grateful to that plant. But I'm also trying to kind of take cues. So I try and there's certain herbs that I try and invite in because I like to use them, like lavender. I love lavender. But there are other plants and herbs that when they show up, I'm like, okay, ancestor, okay, guide, what do you have to tell me? Let me connect with you. Let me learn about you. What are you teaching me? And that's been my practice around gardening and herbalism.
That's incredible. That's incredible. You are definitely a multidisciplinary artist for sure. Like, I also think gardening, there's an art to it. Like,
yeah.
I have tried to grow things, and it's also colder up here in the Bay Area. So sometimes it could be very difficult. I tried to grow mint. When I ignore mint, it grows. When I try to grow it, it doesn't grow.
Yes.
But that's incredible that you've been able to find raspberry just arrived to you and you didn't know. Like my partner makes the raspberry tea leaf for us. She calls it flow tea.
Yeah.
And it's magic. I was like, why don't we all know about this? Like, why isn't this already like something that all women should know the moment they are given feminine products?
Yeah. And the thing again, our ancestors did know this stuff, right? Like there's nothing special about me. This is ancient knowledge. We just have to relearn it. We have to relearn it because we were taken away from our knowledge, or our knowledge was taken away from us, right? So this is how humans have survived for so long. We've used the tools of the natural world to take care of ourselves. And I think it's like we need to reintroduce ourselves to these plant ancestors and let them know we're here. We also evolved to have a relationship with them, not just alongside them, and certainly not opposing them. And so I think it's really important for us to say, this is what I can offer you. I'm going to tend to you, and I'm going to use the medicine, and I'm going to share the knowledge. And in return, this is what the plant is offering us, right? Sustenance, food, medicine, magic, all of these things. But this is ancient stuff. And we just have to kind of like, I think so, what I find so often is because our culture is so toxic in this like late stage capitalism, we're in this place of like, who has the answers? How can we fix this? Everything's awful. And it's like the answers are ancient. We just have to go back. And it's not your fault or my fault that we didn't know this stuff. It's actually by design that we didn't know this stuff. But we have to try and reconnect and relearn these things, because the answers are there and they're old, and kind of returning to that medicine. It's really, at least for me, it feels very, very important. And it's like part of the ancestral work that I'm doing as well.
Yeah, it's incredible. And there is something special about you. I'm just going to reiterate that.
Thank you. I mean to say that anybody can have these connections with plants. I'm not inventing them. Like these are old practices.
Yeah, that's true. My partner, when we first started dating, I had lots and lots of plants. And she was just like, how do you do this? I was like, they're in charge. She's like, what? She's like, they will tell you when they need what they need, when they need it. Like, they are very vocal. You just need to like be chill and listen. Yeah. And now she's the one taking care of all the plants. And I'm like, the house is thriving. We have like everyone says we live in a jungle.
Yes, that is the vibe it should be.
Love it. Yeah. So it's so interesting on how much is available to us, but we're not still enough to hear it.
Yeah,
and
totally.
I think the intentional stillness is where we can hear it. But I have a question I've always wanted to ask a multidisciplinary artist.
Yes.
I don't know why that word is so hard for me. But I've always been curious on like, what is that foundation of like your creativity?
I'm going to separate two things. There's creativity as an inspiration, and then there's creativity as in craft. And those are two different things. And inspiration can be literally anything. Like I said, tarot inspires me. My garden inspires me. Other art inspires me. Like sometimes I'm just hit with inspiration. Big emotions inspire me. So often I write a poem or a song because I'm trying to process a really big emotion and I'm trying to get it out. Like that is inspiring me. But then creativity is also a craft, which is, I know you do morning pages. You show up every day and you write whether or not you want to. That's the craft. You show up every day and you do it. I write every morning. I do morning pages every morning. I have to do it. Like, I have to practice. I sing even when I don't feel like singing. I sing even when my voice isn't very strong that day because I have to practice. It's an instrument. It's a craft that I have to work at all the time. If I don't work at it, it's a muscle. It'll weaken. Like I'm literally, I took several weeks off from singing because of my dad being sick and passing. And now I'm starting to come back to it again. And my voice is weak and I have to rebuild those muscles. And so I think part of it is being open to life and being open to inspiration. And for me, creativity and spirituality are one and the same, and letting those two things come together. I think because I've let those things come together, I never feel like I have writer's block or anything like that, because I just, this spiritual well is so deep. Whenever I'm in but creatively stuck, I just dip into that spiritual well. And then the other thing is like the humbling aspect of the craft, which is like, not everything you create is going to be a masterpiece. That's not the point. The point is not just to be spewing genius. The point is the actual process of creating. It's the actual process of making something new, of having an idea in your head and somehow getting it into reality. Of the craft has to be why you enjoy it. And if you don't enjoy the actual craft, then I'm like, then you're wasting your time. The byproduct of the craft is I've written some songs that people like, but I've written a lot of songs that people will never hear because they're terrible. But I had to write those songs. Those songs helped me process something, or I had to get those out, or they helped me learn a technique that then I used in a later song that actually makes sense. You know what I mean? But I do it because I love it. I love writing. Even when what I'm writing is not good, or it doesn't make sense, or it's not exactly, I'm not able to actually articulate the exact thing I want to. I love the act of being creative. And so I show up for it every day because I love it. I don't feel like I'm a tortured artist. It's not torture. It is an incredible gift that I get to be creative. So I think for me, it's like, if I'm not creative, if I don't have creative time, I'm grumpy. So it's like I have to show up, I have to write those pages every morning. I have to sing. And then I'm always doing things that I have no business doing. Like I do watercolor all the time. I don't know how to watercolor. I've never taken a watercolor class. I don't know anything about watercolor, but it's so fun. I have wet on wet paper, wet paint, and I love how out of control it goes. And I'm like, woo, this is fun. It lights up my brain. I'm like a kid again. So I think that for me, that's part of it too, is it's like, I'm sometimes purposely doing art I am bad at because I love creating, and it just kind of helps me process things and helps me think about things. And it's something that's fun to do with other people too. But I'll do any kind of creative thing. Sure, it feels really good to write a poem that I'm proud of, or to write a song that reaches other people and speaks to other people. And that feels good. And it feels like I'm contributing to humanity when that happens. But I also just love singing, and I love being creative. And I love to write. So I'm going to show up every day to do those things, whether or not other people enjoy them.
Gosh, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Because now I'm like, well, shit, maybe all of us are creatives, but we just hold back because we're like, I shouldn't be doing that. I haven't had a class on that. If it feels good, fucking do it. Because
Yes. And the flip side is, if it's not feeling good, why are you doing it?
Yeah, there's that too. Because I catch myself being like, bro, you're horrible at this. Stop it. And then another part of me is like, but it's so fun.
Yeah.
So that duality of maybe put that judger down and just put that
critic down. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for that. I think that you've given me a lot of inspiration on just showing up, just exactly who you are. And I just wanted to voice that and thank you, because I've never asked that question, but I was so drawn to ask you that.
Oh, you're so welcome. And, I think one of the things about being queer and being a person of color and having so many marginalized identities that are intersecting is like, I hit a place, and I think I hit it earlier than other people do, where I just was like, actually, the only option is to be who I am. Like, there isn't another option. I am so marginalized. There is no way I'm ever going to be a blonde, straight, white girl. That's never happening. I'm so far away from that.
Yeah.
That's never happening. So, like, I'm not even going to try. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it's so much easier to just be myself than to try and not be.
Yeah. Yeah, that was like a quote on The Last of Us. I don't know if you watch it, but there was a moment. There's a moment where one queer girl tells another queer girl, "Oh, like you were so brave because you were always, out there and just existing in your existence." And the other queer girl was like, "I'm not brave. I'm just obvious."
Yeah.
And I was like, "That's so true." And I love that so much because sometimes you think somebody has so much like brave, but then it's just like, I'm too obvious to hide this.
Yes.
So I'm just gonna be, and I think there's a beauty in that.
Yeah. And I don't want to put energy into being something else. It's a waste of energy.
I did that before 18 and it was exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was so tired.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I can't even put into words how thankful I am to have met you and to be able to ask you these questions. And I have one last question before I want to ask you like where people can find you, because I know people are going to be like, where can I find this human? But we have our last question that we always ask our guests. And it is, if you could describe radical acceptance in one word, phrase, or mantra, what would it be?
Ooh. First of all, I love that question. Thank you for asking it.
Most welcome.
And my brain is spinning because I have so many thoughts on it.
You can share several. It doesn't have to just be one.
I think for me, when I think about my first thought is, when do I feel the opposite of that? Like, when do I feel resistance to radical acceptance? And I think I feel resistance to radical acceptance when I'm not trusting. And it's like, if I'm not able to trusting the process, trusting that something is going to be right for me or wrong for me or whatever, if I can't trust my intuition or trust my guides or my ancestors, then that's where I start to act inauthentically to myself. And so I think for me, I'm just thinking about it like, when I'm being inauthentic, I usually have to check in. There's usually something that I feel insecure about, or I'm not trusting. So I didn't trust that I'd be able to make this record for so long because it was such a huge project. And I had to like fundraise for it, and I had to hire a bunch of people. And just for so long, I was like, I'm not gonna be able to do this. I can't. But I knew I had to make it. I knew it was like part of my purpose to make it. And so there was like a conflict there. So I think when I finally moved into the acceptance and I finally said like, you know what, I'm just gonna act like the record's already been made. I'm just gonna act like in the future, the record is out in the world doing its thing. And all I need to do is just do my little everyday steps to get to that future. And so when I started to move into trust, then all of a sudden it felt like, boom, now I'm in total radical self-acceptance of who I am. So I think for me, those two things are connected. And I'm always, whenever I'm feeling like something's a little off, it's usually because I'm having a hard time trusting something, or I've lost my intuition in some way, and I need to kind of check back in. And I need to remind myself to trust life, to trust the timing of life, to trust the process.
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh. That might be part of my morning pages tomorrow.
There you go.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're so welcome.
I'm in deep thought right now. I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay.
I told you I can only go deep. That's my one. That's my only button.
This is my thing, though. This is why this podcast was created, because in community and groups, we would talk about this type of deep things, and we're like, damn, people need to hear this.
Yeah.
So this is right on brand. So
Great.
Don't you worry. But I'm sure people are going to want to know more about you. People are going to want to know where to find you. Also want to read your poetry, because I read quite a few of them, and holy moly.
Thank you.
Multidisciplinary artist, y'all.
Thank you. The best way to find me is my website, which is naomiwestwater.com. And that has links to all of the things. But there's a page on Cycle and Change, the record. There's a page for my poetry. I'm pretty active on Instagram at Naomi Westwater, and on TikTok, which is Naomi_Westwater. And I send out a newsletter, which you can sign up for on my website, on the full and new moon. And usually it has like updates and stuff, but also my little thoughts on the season, spiritual things, that kind of stuff. So that's where you can find me.
I'm going to be on a new newsletter. Yeah. Well, thank you for being here today. This was really, really incredible. And
thanks so much for having me, B.
Yeah, you're most welcome. Thank you for being the inspiration that you are, and for being in the energy that you are, even through this cycle.
Yeah, thank you.
You are moving through. A hug from the West Coast.
Thank you.
Tap that follow button, give us a 5-star rating and review, and hey, your review might end up on the show. This podcast is organically grown by Rafaela Landestoy, Leah Jackson, and myself, V. Vasquez. Editor and sound designer, Leah Jackson of Puka Puka Creative. Original music produced by Basque. His music is amazing. And emotional support by our fur babies, Nugget and Pukalani.